Hi there, my name is Ash and I like to draw. But do you know what else I like? Superheroes. But especially their villains. I think we can all agree that superheroes just aren't much fun if they have no supervillains to fight. And the longer a hero sticks around going on regular adventures, the more likely they are to build up a group of villains that are considered an essential part of the character. Like, no one is going to argue if I say that Doctor Octopus is a Spider-Man villain, right? Or that the Joker is a Batman villain. They're just so synonymous with and have such history with their respective heroes that it comes naturally. However, when you have a list of recurring villains, you do risk running into a little bit of fatigue. As much as I love certain classic supervillains, I also always love seeing a hero fight a new threat, or at least a threat they don't fight nearly as often as the others. I mean, I've read or seen about 100 stories with Batman beating the crap out of the Joker, but I've yet to read a story that features Ratcatcher. I know Doctor Octopus's motivations and personality like the back of my hand, and I know how Spidey usually deals with him, but who the heck is this Carry-On guy? What's his deal? How's Spidey gonna beat him? You see what I mean? It's just more interesting for me to see my heroes fight against villains I'm not as used to. So I thought about it for a second and I figured, why not change the script? Why not take these heroes and have them fight against each other's villains? That's what we're gonna do today. I've chosen 6 superheroes from each of the big 2 publishers, Marvel and DC, that I find to be among the most iconic with the biggest rogues galleries. And I'm simply gonna let the dice decide who gets to fight a villain from whose rogues gallery, just to give them a different challenge for a change. But before we do this, let's go over a few ground rules. Rule number 1, crossovers are allowed. Yeah, I'm not gonna stick with one publisher at a time. DC heroes can fight Marvel villains and vice versa. You know, just for the novelty. Rule number 2, obscure villains are fair game. I'm going to be digging deep into each hero's rogues gallery in order to find the most interesting matchups I can, regardless of that character's popularity. I mean, what's the point if we only use the big dogs? And besides, learning about new characters is fun sometimes. And speaking of fun, here's rule number 3. Fun is way more important than power scaling. While I will try to find the character I think will make the best match, there are gonna be some cases where a hero and some villains just aren't in the same weight class, but that's okay. I mean, this is all about what will look cool and what will be fun to draw. So just assume there's some in-story mumbo-jumbo happening to justify the fight. Rule number 4, forget continuity. Now, coming up with reasons for these characters to fight is definitely fun, but a lot of them have been around for decades and have very long and complicated histories, so I'm not gonna bother trying to keep track of who's dead, who's alive, who's reformed, or any of that jazz. So just assume the canon bends itself to make these fights happen. Rule number 5, the legacy clause. In cases where more than one person has used the same hero or villain name, like, you know, the frickin' 7 Green Lanterns, I reserve the right to pick exactly the one I want to make the drawing the most interesting. So you might not necessarily see the most popular version of a character. And finally, rule number 6, no repeats. Assuming I end up making more of these videos, I'm going to be slowly replacing the heroes with other ones as we go along, just to keep things interesting and maybe highlight some more obscure characters down the road. The rogues galleries are still fair game though. Alright, that's enough rules. Let's get to the fun part. First, we roll for the hero and we get Shazam, the little boy who turns superhero empowered by the gods with the help of a single magic word. Or I guess you can call him Captain Marvel if you prefer. Yeah, that's a whole thing. Please do your own research on this one. I don't need this headache right now. And he will be fighting against a Wonder Woman villain. Oh, now this is interesting. These 2 characters have a lot of thematic overlap. They've both been around since the 40s, they both deal in magic and monsters, and they both are empowered by Greek gods and mythological figures. It's a match made in comic book heaven. So of course I went ahead and scoured the rogues gallery and did absolutely none of that. Nope. No gods. No monsters. No magic. Because you know what else Shazam and Wonder Woman have in common? Some really freaking goofy villains. If you go back to the Golden Age and the Silver Age and ignore the villains that are a little bit, oh no, you'll find a lot of strange, wacky characters that are just so much charming, ridiculous fun. I've always felt that Shazam works the best when he's kept a very light-hearted character, so I scrolled through Wonder Woman's rogues galleries in search of a delightfully silly villain. And I do believe I found the perfect candidate. Say hello to the Blue Snowman. Originally, the Blue Snowman was a woman named Bernard Brilliant, who simply used a male supervillain name to throw off suspicion, as she did crime with her experimental paralyzing blue snow. In modern times, Berna is now presented as a genuinely gender-fluid scientist wearing a powered suit, who goes by their male Blue Snowman persona whenever they do crimes. Now, granted, it might not be the most sensitive depiction of gender fluidity when you really boil it down, but hey, it's a start. Yeah, turns out gender stuff is actually like a thing with Wonder Woman villains. I mean, just ask Hypnota. Oh, and by the way, Berna showing up in my adventures with Superman is a complete coincidence. I planned this video way before that episode came out. All in all, I think they make for a wonderfully silly villain for our big red Boy Scout to fight. So let's get drawing. I actually started this drawing off a little bit differently than usual. Rather than going straight for a pencil sketch, I thumbnailed a little simple layout to get an idea of what I wanted to do, mainly showing good old Billy smacking the heck out of the snowman's armor. Pow! Then I sketched it again in pencil in more detail, and finally I did it one more time digitally in order to fix up some mistakes and get things looking how I wanted. I then started with drawing the snowman, and I decided to go for their more cartoonish design. You see, there's been a few attempts over the years to make the blue snowman look cooler, and while I'm not gonna tell people how to treat a character that I honestly don't know all that well, I personally feel like trying to make characters like this more badass kind of misses the point. Characters like Blue Snowman are fun because of their goofy, cartoony design, silly nicknames, and their kind of loopy behavior, not in spite of it. Not every villain needs to be a scheming chess master played dead serious all the time. Sometimes a superhero just needs a big, frowning robot wearing a dorky bowler hat to punch. Especially when that hero is as lighthearted as Billy Batson. Thankfully, the blue is also a great color to put against Shazam's red and gold costume, so that they end up really clashing visually as well as literally. That way, I'll know for sure that Shazam sticks out once I've drawn him beating the tar out of the snowman's chest plate. I don't actually think the snowman is usually this big, but let's just assume that Berna had a bit of extra cash to burn this time around, huh? I'll admit I am not great at American-style superhero faces, but I'm pretty happy with how he turned out otherwise. Oh, and I took my inspiration for this version of Shazam from Jeff Smith's Shazam and the Monster Society of Evil. A wonderful graphic novel made by the same brilliant mind that brought us Bone. Yes, that is the second time I praised Bone in one of my videos, and I swear to God I'll do it again. And finally, it just wouldn't be Shazam without a little bit of lightning. Maybe calling down the lightning to transform actually melts the paralyzing snow off, so Billy has to spend the whole fight turning back and forth into Shazam in order to win the fight? That could potentially be interesting and give Berna a bit of an edge. Now, it's not really a fair fight if it's just Shazam punching the heck out of Snowy here, so let's make a snowstorm around them to make it seem like Berna built a machine that spreads their snow way further than usual, making it necessary for Shazam to step in. For a few final touches, I decided to turn the whole thing into a comic book cover, much like I did with Hollow Man before. And there we have it. That's Shazam the Big Red Cheese duking it out with Wonder Woman's frozen foe, the Blue Snowman. I like to think this turned out nice and dynamic. But what do you think? Did you enjoy this video? Did you like the results? Do you want to see more of these hero-villain mashups? Then click the like button, leave a comment below and subscribe to the channel, and you'll be the first to know next time I shake up the universes and knock some superhero heads around. See you there, folks, and bye-bye.